So we've just seen a videotape of two local Virginia police officers assaulting a U.S. Army lieutenant, an African-American U.S. Army lieutenant, and that lieutenant has now brought federal suit against those two police officers. Let's talk about why that suit should be successful, and then let's talk about why America is in desperate need of true police reform. Because equal justice for all matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So you've probably already seen the videotape by now. Two local Virginia police officers pull over and, let's call it what it is, assault an Army lieutenant, an African-American Army lieutenant by the name of Caron Nazario. If you haven't watched the video, I urge you to watch it. As disturbing as it is, as painful as it is to watch, it was infinitely more painful for Lieutenant Nazario to experience. But we have to bear witness, and we have to use these things to motivate us to insist on real police reform. And I'll talk about that at the end of the video. But here's how the New York Times reported that incident. Black Army officer pepper sprayed in traffic stop, accuses officers of assault. Second Lieutenant Caron Nazario was in uniform when two Windsor, Virginia police officers ordered him to stop his car, pointed their weapons at him, and doused him with pepper spray. Now, these two police officers, Daniel Crocker and Joe Gutierrez, initiate a traffic stop. This is what we see on the tape. And they activate their lights and sirens. Lieutenant Nazario decides he's not going to pull over in the pitch black dead of night stretch of highway that he was on at the moment. So what he does is he puts his emergency flashers on his car. He travels under the speed limit for about 100 seconds, a little over a minute and a half, until he comes upon a well-lit gas station. He pulls in, stops, and complies. This is not a police chase, high speed, low speed, or otherwise. And then what do the police officers do? They jump out of their car with guns drawn, trained on the driver's door of Lieutenant Nazario's vehicle. Now, why did they stop him? Well, Lieutenant Nazario was driving his brand new SUV, and it didn't yet have a hard tag, a hard license plate on the back. It had a paper tag displayed, a temporary tag in the back window, as is supposed to be the case. And let's also tackle the fact that it's okay for a citizen to drive 100 seconds at a low speed and pull into a well-lit area to protect himself. So Lieutenant Nazario thus far has done nothing wrong, nothing justifying the traffic stop. And yet these two police officers jump out with guns drawn. And they're yelling and they're screaming, "Show me your hands, get out of the car." And Lieutenant Nazario puts his hands out of the driver's side window and he starts asking, "What's going on? What's going on?" And do you know what Officer Crocker says in response to the question, "What's going on?" He says, "What's going on is you're fixin' to ride the lightning, son." How's that for escalation instead of de-escalation? You're fixin' to ride the lightning, son? I've heard people interpret that as a reference to the electric chair. I've heard people interpret that as the use of a taser. But how in the world, in response to a citizen you've just stopped for no reason, asking you in a calm, respectful voice, you'll hear the lieutenant on the tape, "What's going on? You're fixin' to ride the lightning, son." That's abusive. That's misconduct. And then when Lieutenant Nazario says, "I'm actually afraid to get out of the car," Officer Crocker doesn't say, "Sir, there's nothing to be afraid of. We just pulled you over because we didn't see a license plate on the back of your vehicle. To which Lieutenant Nazario could have responded, I have my lawful temporary paper tag displayed in the back window. No. When the lieutenant said he was actually afraid to get out of the car, Officer Crocker said, yeah, you should be. Are you kidding me? That's abusive. That's misconduct. That's escalation. And watch the tape, because you're going to see that lieutenant in his Army fatigues, coming from his duty assignment, serving the country. Never raise his voice, never be disrespectful. He just wanted to know what in the world was going on. Why were they doing this to him? At one point, they keep yelling at him, take your seatbelt off, take your seatbelt off. Of course, they're also saying, show me your hands. So he's getting contradictory directives. And he also articulates, I'm afraid to reach for my seatbelt. Because what might that have inspired? And then when you can see Officer Crocker is just angry and frustrated and abusive, while the lieutenant's hands are out the window posing no threat, Officer Crocker takes out his pepper spray and starts spraying the lieutenant directly in the face repeatedly with the pepper spray. And yet the lieutenant still doesn't lose his cool or raise his voice or do anything aggressive. They get him out of the car. They put him on the ground. Do you think he had any concern? They handcuff him behind his back. You think he had any concern about being handcuffed behind his back, prone, face down on the asphalt with multiple police officers around him? Where have we seen that movie before? This makes my blood boil. This is an Army lieutenant, which frankly doesn't even matter. It's one of our fellow citizens, one of our black brothers and sisters, who is being abused, mistreated, degraded, assaulted for sport. And folks, let's get to the police. Oh, so the good news is Lieutenant Nazario has federally sued these officers for abusing his statutory rights, his constitutional rights, and he should win that suit. Just introduce that videotape into evidence and rest your case. But this brings me back to the reform question. I know I've done other videos on the need for drastic, dramatic, bottom-up police reform. And I've set out what I think is a sensible three-part plan. And the first part is all I want to talk about right now. It is extreme vetting during the hiring practice. And it's extreme vetting during the hiring practice with full citizen participation. Participation by the people who will be policed by the officer who is hired. And when I say extreme, I mean extreme. And there are lots of ways to extremely vet. Somebody who craves or covets or seeks the kind of power that comes with a badge on your chest and a gun on your hip and the authority to order citizens to stop their cars, get on the ground, put cuffs on them, arrest them. You should welcome the extreme vetting with full citizen participation. Because think about it. Police body-worn cameras didn't deter these officers from abusing Lieutenant Nazario. And do you think if there had been a ban against the use of pepper spray or the ban of a certain chokehold that those officers would have complied with those prohibitions? No. They were going to abuse a man because they could. So just prohibiting certain police tactics will not have the desired effect. It will not equal real reform. It will be putting a Band-Aid on a gaping chest wound. And that's why we need extreme vetting during the hiring practice. And the hiring practice must involve full citizen participation. And I'll try to link my earlier video with parts 2 and parts 3. But it can be done. And these kind of incidents, should bear witness to the need, the non-negotiable need to fix what's broken in our policing, in our country. And yes, there are lots of good cops. I work with so many good cops who were there to protect and serve. But these two officers, and Derek Chauvin and his fellow officers, they are not among the good cops. They are among the worst of the worst. And changing police policies and procedures will not deter those kind of police officers. Full bottom-up reform. Because only then can we move toward a nation that fulfills the promise of equal justice for all. A dream that will be deferred no longer, according to Joe Biden's inaugural speech. Because we know that justice for all matters. Folks, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.